Community Development and Renewal Agency business meeting for the city of Cottonwood Heights, Tuesday, October 5th. It's just after 6:20 and Tuesday again, October 5th. We want to begin. We just have we have a short agenda, but would like to try and finish that before our city's business meeting. The first item on the agenda is a report by the Cdra CEO, Tim Tingey, and our Economic and Community Development Director, Mike Johnson. So I'll turn over to you two. Who's going first?
Mike will go first. Okay, let me pull my screen up here. The first item is just consideration of the annual report that's required for any city that has CDA, CRA project areas. The state mandates that these reports be filed annually by November 1st and give a summary of each project area, its budget items, its progress, things like that. So this is that typical report that we've considered in past years. We only have the one active project area, which is Canyon Center. So that's the only item detailed in this report. Couple of notes of interest since the last report was filed is we have beginning in 2021 triggered the tax increment period for this project area. That was triggered, I believe, January 2021. We'll see the first revenues come back from that in the next couple months by the end of the year. It's anticipated in this report to be about $570,000.
That's the increment from the first year.
Estimated, yeah. We haven't seen it yet, but that's what's estimated. Other notes of interest, obviously the parking structure opened at the end of the year. Last year, open to the public. It will be open this year for the full ski season. The hotel was finished and opened for occupancy and use in the last couple months. The restaurant up there, 8 Settlers, is now open and finished for public use. There's another retail pad that just sits right underneath the hotel building, kind of in an indent in the parking structure that's under construction right now. So good progress has been made, but like I said, that increment has been triggered and is now active. Other than that, it's a very standard report. One note of interest is the reporting requirements are changing effective January 1st, 2022. Rather than reporting on November 1st and sending it to all the taxing entities and the auditor and other places, moving forward, we will have to submit these by June 30th, I think is the requirement. And those will be submitted to the Governor's Office of Economic Opportunity. They're creating a database of these project areas. So all reports will be filed and sent to that office in June. So we will actually have to file our next one of these less than a year from now, in about 6 months.
And you won't file another one in November?
Until the following June, yeah. So this is the weird portion of the cycle when the new law takes effect. Any other questions on this?
I have a couple questions.
Sure.
And if this is not the right time, let me know. As far as time frame of developing the green space, which is the city responsibility, where does that sit in the process right now? Is it 1 acre? Is that right?
It's 1 acre, yeah. I believe. Go ahead, Tim.
Well, as far as sitting in the process, we have to collect enough funds, and we have a priority level of where the funds go with this tax increment financing. So we have to be able to collect enough to be able to move forward with the project.
What's enough?
We've got to probably outline what we're going to need to do with the project. So we haven't really identified that. I think what we would do with some of this initial increment is probably develop a design and some cost figures on that. But where we haven't had any increment at this point to do that, which we anticipate we will here
Okay, well,
shortly.
I guess that's my question. Where do we fit in that time frame So the first thing is get increments. We start having some resources to then do the design, these conceptual design, to create a budget to know how much increment, how many years it takes to get it
Right.
to do the construction.
Yeah,
Can I plant a seed with you, Tim? Because we had these conversations, Rod, before you were here. But as we do that 1 acre, can we run electricity to facilitate people hosting vendor booths for a farmer's market? Put that in the back of your mind.
Yep.
Oh, you can put that in there easily.
yeah, I think that makes sense.
And maybe my second question is, and maybe this is for later time too, where are we on the apartments?
Yeah, I did get an update from the owner of the apartment pad. They've actually submitted, they're requesting a slight modification to split some of the larger units that were previously approved into smaller units, so to increase the unit count. That's going to Planning Commission probably in mid-October or November, but they're financing that building through HUD, and that closes at the end of this year. So we anticipate that will move forward early 2022.
Yeah, I think the rest of the area, I have an understanding of the status there.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions of Mike from? the council?
I was gonna say that the development of the park area is heavily weighted towards the beginning, the first couple of years. I thought it was like
It's-
3/4 of a
I
minute.
think it's listed as a priority 2 in the budget of the area. Priority 1 being the reimbursement of the Salt Lake County loan that helped fund the parking structure, and then reimbursement to Canyon School District for a portion of their participation. And then priority 2 is the park and a few other things.
But if we can get a little bit out of, at least start doing those.
Yeah, I think-
designs and stuff, so we know what expectations are, and we can share that with the public. And yeah,
Mayor, there's also an administrative fee that's part of those priorities, and some of the funds going towards that can help us look at some of these park estimates.
I will just note, it's the next item, but it is included by reference here. There was recent state legislation that we'll talk about again in just a minute that allows, due to COVID and the economic impact that the pandemic had, allows an extension to the collection period of these project areas by 2 years. So it doesn't state that will absolutely happen in this November 1st report, but it states that the city is considering it. So it's not relevant. Your decision on that matter is not relevant or doesn't really impact this report at all, but I do want to note that there is reference to that legislation included in here.
and we'll be talking about that later in today's
Just
agenda.
very next item, yeah.
But today, regarding the report, is there any further question of Tim or Mike regarding the November 1st report? And it's got a lot, so if you go through it.
So I'm assuming moving forward as other areas started or initial, that would just be additional sections.
Right. Correct.
Any other questions, comments from the council? Hearing none, I would consider a motion to approve resolution 2021-01, adopting the CDRA's 2021 annual report.
Move that we approve that, Mayor.
Okay, it's been moved by Councilmember Peterson. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
And seconded by Councilmember Bracken. Any further questions or discussions? Hearing none, I'd call for the vote. Councilmember Michael? With us, or did she, Tim, did you know?
I haven't seen that she's on. Is she on, Matt?
She's not on.
I didn't see that.
I
was
think
on.
she had to be excused. She's traveling and she's out of state, so
Yes.
we'll excuse Councilmember Michael. Councilmember Bruce,
Yes.
Councilmember Bracken,
Yes.
Councilmember Peterson.
Yes.
And I will vote yes. The next item is item 3.0, proposed amendment to the Canyon Center Development Agreement. I guess Tim and Mike, you want to introduce this as well?
Yes, thanks, Mayor. So Senate Bill 6001, which was part of one of the special sessions of 2020, I think in August. It allows CDRAs to extend for up to 2 years the collection period of certain project areas impacted by COVID-19. And we have received a request from Chris McCandless with the Canyon Center project to extend the collection period of Canyon Center by 2 years. The extension per the state legislation is applicable only if the city's CDRA adopts a resolution before December 31st, 2021, and describes the following circumstances that result in the extension. So basically, we need to provide rationale that conditions resulting from the COVID-19 pandemic will either delay or have an impact economically on the implementation of a project area plan, or reduce the amount of tax increment the agency receives from the impacted project area, including rationale for why an extension of the project area funds collection period is needed, and then a date on which the extension period will end. These extensions don't allow us to modify the percentage actually collected. So if an entity collects 75% or contributes 75%, that remains the same. It just adds 2 years onto the maximum collection period. So after reviewing this, we do recommend approval of this request. Just by adding 2 years to the end of this, it allows more time for projects that have been impacted by the pandemic and associated supply chain issues, construction costs, and leasing challenges. It allows more time on the back end to make up for the lost time on the front end. And as has been submitted in the applicant's narrative that I think you all have copies of, the lease rates for market financing have gone down and construction costs have gone up. So it's impacted the ability to, especially for the office market, to finance these projects in the current economic market. Trends are pointing towards improvement of this. So by adding 2 years, we think that will give enough time to get the project up and running. The 2 years on the back end will allow us to compensate for any slowdown that can be attributed to the COVID pandemic. Again, the estimate of 1 year of collection was about $580,000. So by not extending by 2 years, we're potentially missing out on just over $1 million of tax increment revenue. And again, we feel that revenue, not only is it necessary to pay back the county loan for the parking structure, but that revenue is directly used for other improvements like the park in there. So adding 2 years to the end of this seems to benefit the city directly with some of those project funding priorities. As you can see, the applicant's here. If you have questions for him or want to hear from him, you're welcome to do that, or any questions of staff.
The legislation that was passed, the other taxing entities involved, then I mean, it doesn't go to them for a vote or anything like that.
No, it only
Something that
requires
the
action.
CDRA
Correct.
actions due to extend it. Is there somewhere in here a use of funds projected or change? I will confess, I have not looked at this in detail. I've had some other personal issues going on this last week. I was just wondering, is there a spreadsheet
In the
with adding
report,
the 2 years?
With the added 2 years,
not till we.
I don't think that's in there. No, it's just the existing project budget and.
But I assume a
projections.
future report will then add in additional.
It would, yeah.
2 year of-
So what we would do if this resolution was passed in that June 30th report, we would change those deadlines accordingly and
Show-
include that information.
The financial impacts.
Right.
Does the CDRA have the option of reversing the year pension?
Great question.
I think they have the option through an amendment, to the development agreement. That would be the only option, but at this point, this would be the second amendment to the agreement, and that's what you're considering tonight. And by the way, just adding, if I may, to what you said, it's very unique that the legislature did this and allowed this without going back to the taxing entities, like you said, because normally you would have to go back to all the taxing entities and renegotiate the agreements you have with them. But this was passed this way to allow because of the COVID issues that have occurred.
Well, and Tim, you may be able to answer this just because you have more experience. Generally speaking, if you're in a CDRA and you've come to the end of it and everything's done, but it's done early, have people terminate them?
Yes, there's that option.
That is legal.
Now, I've seen that done in another state once. Most of the time, it's not done, and the increment that's collected goes towards other things that the CDRA board and the other entities agree to, like other improvements in the area, or maybe to housing, meeting affordable housing goals or things like that. But there is that option to end it early, but it's a process.
I understand that's probably most likely to happen. My question was, I just never bothered to ask, is it even possible?
Mike, what would be the extension? What would this do to the time frame, like on the development of that 1 acre park or other ripple effects and
Yeah,
timeframe?
so part of this, because the office building is the most impacted, I think there's a deadline of completion in the current development agreement for December 2022. That would be extended by 2 years as well, just to shift, because that's the precedent for this this request. Other than that, it wouldn't affect any other elements of the project area. I believe the office building would be finished regardless before enough funds are received to completely construct the city park.
But by not extending, do we then impact the level of funds potentially available to do
Yes.
the park?
Yeah. Not immediately, but at the end of 25 years, we could see, again, per budget projections, 1.2 million less than if we extended this.
Is there an option where we still complete the park
So,
and do the delay?
so here, the challenge is the park is not listed as a first priority. So the first priority is going to be repaying the county and Canyon School District. So if we saw a loss of revenues and didn't extend, those two things probably wouldn't be impacted because that's where the budget priority is. But the tier 2 things, which is where the city park is,
Would
would
have a
be
greater
impacted.
impact on
Right.
those. Yeah.
Right.
Well, I think the COVID impacts are real. I think we can see that across the country and here locally, and housing and everything else. So, yeah, I think that's what legislature proposed the opportunity to extend. But it has a fiscal impact to us by not extending, even though, as Scott said, I guess we'd have the right to reevaluate going forward.
Sure, yeah. I think the
Okay.
agency could amend an agreement at any time. Yeah.
Maybe I'm misunderstanding, and maybe Chris, you can answer this. My understanding was that the full funding for the park portion was concentrated towards the first few years of the yield of the tax increment. Is that the case? That should still be the case?
That's the way I understood it as well. The first couple of years, you get 100% of the county's money going to the park. And
So that would be after that other first chunk is done. but-
I don't know, it's been a while since we all read this. Right? I'm no exception to that, but
But
I
the,
think
but,
you
but,
get-
but
I
the
can
park
answer
isn't
that.
25, a small little bit for 25 years. It was a whole bunch
Yeah.
right up.
at the beginning.
Yeah.
And then other things.
So the county was
happened.
100% and then it went down to 75.
Yeah, I can answer that. You're correct. You're correct. I have the spreadsheet in front of me right now, and it indicates the first roughly 6 years, depending upon if there is excess funds to cover that. That would be the amount that would go towards the park. Keep in mind, though, the significant portions are going towards that reimbursement on the loan for the county. And we're talking about 350,000 right at the beginning for the length of time of the whole area. That's the priority. That's the number one priority. So if you're not hitting the increment amounts to get those reimbursements in place, it will impact what happens with the rest of the projects.
But if it's 570 and the county takes 300 plus, my point is the process to design bid a park anyway, but at least we'd have some money right away to begin the process of design, et cetera, to start making something happening. Yeah.
Yeah, under there's a 5% set aside for project administration that can
Yeah.
cover that.
Other than that, but the point is we can start.
Yeah.
the
Yeah,
process.
and that's what I wanted to make sure,
Yep.
because that's what I understood, that was a front-loaded appropriation of funds.
That's absolutely correct, based on the development agreement, what I'm reviewing right now.
Further questions of Tim or Mike regarding the amendment to the Canyon Center Development Agreement? Questions, concerns? Again, something will be monitored regularly going forward. Hearing none, I would consider a motion to approve resolution 2021 #2, approving the second amendment to the development agreement for the Canyon Center as articulated tonight.
I understand that it's been presented, that I would move that we. that-
It's been moved by Councilmember Bracken. Do I have a second?
I'll second that, Mayor.
Seconded by Councilmember Peterson. Any further questions, comments? And appreciate that clarification. And Scott, you're reminding us of the importance and the timing of that park, which is high priority.
It was one of the key points of getting this done. That was what the city and the public was going to see.
And Tally, I appreciate your comment regarding that as well. That's a high priority for me personally. All right, any further questions, comments? Hearing none, I call for the vote. Councilor Peterson,
Yes.
Councilor Bracken,
Yes.
Councilor Bruce,
Yes.
and we'll excuse Councilor Michael, and I will vote yes. All right. The next item briefly is a question or discussion regarding, we had a couple of proposed CDRA project areas, both at the gravel pit and Hillside Plaza. So you want to talk about those real quick?
Sure.
Yeah,
Wanna
yeah,
start
really
with
quick introduction, and I'll let Tim add anything. We, pre-pandemic, received the direction from the board to proceed on 2 CRA, community reinvestment areas. One being at the gravel pit, one being the kind of town center project at Fort Union and 2300 East. Initial discussions got delayed for quite a while, just due to the county's shifting priorities and pandemic response. And shortly after that, their economic development division kind of restaffed and took a while to get up and running. So we've had a few preliminary meetings with them, but we're now ready, I think, to get back into the project area negotiations and start that process in earnest again. However, one of the pieces of feedback we receive fairly regularly from the county is their concern over the Fort Union and 2300 East project. Their criteria, and I think they've gotten a little more strict on this over the years, is they want to see projects that are of regional significance, and they've got some benchmarks to prove that, and something called a but-for analysis, which is a financial analysis to try to quantify the benefit of a CRA. They have concerns that won't pencil for that area. And we're getting a lot of preliminary feedback that we may want to focus more immediately on the gravel pit while we finesse that Fort Union project a little bit more. So our recommendation and what we're seeking feedback from the board on tonight is that we move forward immediately with the gravel pit, and then we work more with our consultant to try to revamp the Fort Union project area to better meet the terms and the conditions that the county is going to look for. And in addition to the county, the school district and other taxing entities as well.
Mayor, may I also add something related to that? So additionally, I've been in a number of meetings with the Utah League this summer, and one of the things that the governor's office is proposing is limiting incentives for retail projects anywhere. And that's a hot issue right now that's being discussed. The league's trying to counter that by saying that one size doesn't fit all related to that there are some scenarios that need to be considered. But right now, it's something that's probably going to be an issue that's going to be discussed through the legislative session. So with that in place, I don't think it would be wise to continue this forward until that issue is worked out, or we could be spending time that would be fruitless anyway. So based on that, just know some of the larger context related to those incentives on a more retail oriented area is potentially problematic with the legislature right now.
There's no question, I mean, the county's involvement and participation. And so if we have the support on a gravel pit, I personally support moving that ahead as quickly as possible, but I would not drop the concept of Hillside Plaza, because I know to the community, that's a critical area, especially in District 3. Tally has heard and I've heard for years about that future development. So we just need to keep that a priority as well. Okay, any further questions or comments? I'm assuming
It's really disheartening for District 3. Disheartening to hear.
Yeah, we want, certainly we don't want to drop it either. We just need to retool and revamp what our proposal looks like so we can better meet, the county and the taxing entities' expectations there.
but I don't think it changes the vision.
No, the vision's still the same.
Doesn't change the vision of what we have for Hillside Plaza and what the council eventually will accept. It's just the mechanism might be a little bit different possibly, but no, it doesn't change the vision and what needs to happen there and the concerns on density and those things. So,
Right.
yeah,
It's unfortunate the developer didn't work with us.
well, they keep changing.
Yeah, that one, yeah.
All right, any comments, questions to Mike or Tim regarding those updates on proposed CDRA areas?
No, one thing that may help on the 23rd Fort Union, I would just, if there was some, we have talked in the past about frequency of transit and or other options there that might make that, tie that in if the corridor through that area up to the canyons were to be more utilized or something like that.
Yeah,
That may change the county's analysis, but.
And I know the county's looking at that along with Wasatch, and I think a lot of things are coming that are going to be new here soon with the EIS and some other county positions that they're taking with that.
Yeah, and that could have a positive impact on this, is if some of these regional EIS projects and even our gravel pit project area are in place, that might provide that added.
Right,
rationale.
Mike, just to clarify, Hillside Plaza, they have yet to turn anything in, any
Yes.
proposals at all?
Correct.
And no verbal or written contact?
No, not recently. No, same update that it's been for the last 8 months.
I think COVID's impacted them like everyone else.
Yeah.
Would be my gut.
But that area extends beyond just that corner. It goes to the west, it goes up to the post office,
Down to the library.
oxygen
Yeah.
or the,
Yeah, it's kind of that whole
Yeah.
node area there. Yeah.
it's more than just that one corner. So there's some impact.
Well, and as we've talked, and it's just kind of a cliche, but it's kind of the city center mentality and connect even all the way up here to City Hall. Yeah. Yeah. All right. We've only got a couple minutes, so I'd like to give the council just a brief rest in between now and our business meeting. So any final comments regarding the CDRA? Hearing none, the minutes are on here and it has an approval process that they'll be sent to you. And if you have any comments, you can give them back. If not, they'll stand approved after, I think it's 3 days from that submission to you. So I'd entertain a motion to adjourn from our CDRA business meeting.
So moved.
It's moved. A second.
I'll second that, Mayor.
All in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye, that's unanimous.